Welcome to Performance Mesh, episode 10, double digits already. My name is John O'Neill. I'm here with my co-host, Eric Manis. Today we have a very special guest on, whose name is Cody Benz, Dr. Cody Benz, I believe he goes by these days. But Eric, I'm going to kick it to you and let you start the conversation with Cody.
So Cody, you've worked with John and I, and we just want to hear, you have a little bit of a unique story of how you got into the field. Can you just give us a little bit of a run up of like how you got where you are today, where you've been along your journey, and how you think you got there?
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me on, boys. I'm a little upset that it took you 10 episodes to get me on, but here we are. No, I'm excited though. But yeah, so like when I was in high school, I only really cared about basketball, and I didn't want to do anything else. And I was actually like plagued by knee pain all throughout high school. And then I went like did PT, never really got better, got like cortisone shots, helped a little bit. And then I got to the point my senior year where they basically like wanted to cut away some of the tendon. It was like kind of experimental. And it took me till senior year of high school to realize I wasn't going to make it to the NBA. So
can you tell everybody how tall you are also?
Yeah, unathletic 5'10" on a good day.
Your shots weren't great besides the knee pain.
Not great, no. And the knee pain aside, they weren't good. Yeah.
I think you were probably like a 4 hustle guy too, right?
Big hustle guy. No, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do in school. So like I went to college for business, and I like failed out after a year and a half. I had a 1.2 GPA, which was pretty stellar. And so I took some time off. I got a job at a gym and started training and made my knees feel much better, which is really frustrating because nobody ever did that. And they did all these crazy different interventions, but nobody ever said, why don't you try to get a little stronger? So that made me feel better. I started like reading a bunch of training books, and then I went to Springfield College where I wanted to do like exercise science. Got that degree. That's where I met like Pat Davidson, a good buddy of mine, Eric Schmidt, who was like pretty influential in my development. And he just sort of told me like, go this way, check out these people, do these things. And so then I did an internship at iFast, which was very, very like helpful for me. Learned a lot there. Interned at Quinnipiac University with Brajesh Patel, which was awesome. Then after that, I moved to New York and started working at Drive 495 with Johnny OJ, where we were running show there for a while. And then, so I worked there for years, got into PT school at Hunter College. And after that, now I started doing a clinical with Resilient Performance, and that's where I'm at now. Long-winded, but
that was pretty short-winded. It's funny, and just like to go off it's funny like you kind of had to go through like all your journey, right? To like kind of go into Springfield, and then like you meet Pat Davidson in like what year, like 2008, right? And Eric Schmidt, who like is works in the NBA and is as a rock star coach. It's like you come along, you really need to meet certain people to like end up where you are, right? Like, could you just talk about like those influences and the impact they've had on you?
Yeah, for sure. I remember like when I was at Springfield, actually Eric Schmidt's probably like the single most influential person, because he was the person that was even told me like, hey, you should pay attention to Pat Davidson. He's smart. You should pay attention to like, Bill Hartman. You should pay attention to Brajesh Patel. Like I didn't know much. Like at the time I was just really into powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting. And I actually met Eric because I was trying to get access to the varsity weight room at Springfield to do Olympic lifting, because you couldn't in the like regular weight room. And he was in the master's program, and I was like, like a 21-year-old freshman because I'd failed out and I was starting over. And so he just thought I was like some schlep. And he was like, sure, like we can like train together. And then we started training together, and I would like go over his apartment every night, and we would watch like, Great Cook DVDs, and we would watch like Joel Jameson seminars, and we would just every single day we would just go over and like learn things. And so he was the one that opened my eyes to all these people in the industry that were like doing fun things and were really at the cutting edge. So he was the person that like really was like the most influential to me. So like very thankful for him.
Um,
So-
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so like I know you. I mean, we worked together for about 2 years. That was 5+ years ago now at this point. But I know you have a lot of influences. The ones you've mentioned so far, the people you've learned from, etc. I'm curious now. Like we haven't been around each other in a work setting in 5+ years. Like let's say somebody comes in to see you. Could be any injury. Like somebody comes in to see you for the first time. What does your thought process look like, and what would you, how would you, or delineate like what your influences are at this point?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, and I'm not sure I'll like really do it justice answering, but and so much of it is influenced by the population that we see. Like, I tend to think we see, at least in our New York location, like people that like moving and like being athletic or like being active, and they tend not to just do things very well. So like my philosophy kind of now is like just like low hanging fruit, especially the model that we run with Resilient, where it's like one-on-one at a network. So sometimes sometimes we take people's insurances, but a lot of times too, people are paying out of pocket. So they're not planning to be there long term. So I need to try to really just find things that find a way to make them do the things they're doing now better. So it's really like my philosophy is really just like, it's like, how can I what's the least cumbersome thing I can give you? What's like, how can I like basically disrupt your day to day as little as possible? So I try to just find things that like simple things that people could do practically and frequently that will make impact them. So everything I do too, I think I look through it through like the lens of fitness. And so if I do get somebody that isn't very active, my goal is like, how can I get them to be more active and get them to do things that ultimately like help them feel better in the moment, but help make them a little shameless plug right here, more resilient, but I really is I kind of look at it as just trying to like almost like the role of like an educator in a way, even though that might sound kind of corny.
No, that makes complete sense. And the root of my question, I guess I didn't do a great job like giving a backstory here. Like one of the things I thought you did extremely well when we worked together was just make things very simple and straightforward, even if the problem was potentially complex. Like the solutions were always pretty simple. To the point where they're probably honestly boringly simple to you. I remember us talking all the time how like just like genuinely bored you would get training the same type of people over and over again with similar solutions, right? Because you were had enough knowledge, but were also smart enough to parse down what you're trying to do with people into like some very, very straightforward things and could coach them really well. And I think sometimes when people give like the answers of like, all right, so I'll give like Dan John, for example, right? So he's like the godfather of simplifying things in our field. And so it's very much like that, but it's not because Dan John doesn't know stuff. It's just because he wants to make his solutions as straightforward as possible. So sometimes when people like say things like that, it almost like demeans themselves. So I think credit to yourself and what you do know that you're able to provide really simple solutions to complex problems.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And that's like something I try to do. And you like, I feel like you guys are like, I'm almost getting baited into going on a tangent here where it's like, I feel like so much of our industry is trying to make things more complicated for like ego purposes or like social media purposes and like engagement. And I think it probably does a lot of young coaches and young people a disservice in the industry a disservice, because while like the people on social media that are saying like these very complicated things, they are providing a good service to the people that they operate with. I'm not so sure that the young people that are hearing a lot of these messages are providing the same quality of care that they are from the people they're learning from. And so part of it's like I feel like a protest against all the complexity that you might see like scrolling on your Instagram. And also too, like my patients really don't care. Most of them don't care. They just care that like something hurts or they're not doing something as well as they would like, and they just want to be better at it. like no, I mean, we work with like some pro athletes, but mostly it's just like weekend warrior type people. But even you guys work with like more high level athletes than I do, and like they don't really care about the X's and O's and the why. They just really care about like, what just make me better at what I do.
100%. So yeah, Cody, I mean, you are the anti social media. You stand your pedestal against social media, right? And like you don't. When I'm talking, you don't really seem like interested in like how the field is going, but you've always had a full book of clients, right? And you're always like a really super busy. And to me, it's like like you're like fun to be around, and like you're good at your job, right? So can you talk about like how you have gone against the grain of like what people think on social media to be like, here you are anti that? Like, I don't even know if you have an Instagram, and like people, I feel like spend more time learning about like social media marketing, but they kind of like can't coach their way out of a paper bag, right? So like, how have you took your stand and just planted your stick in the ground and said that this is what I'm going to do?
Well, I mean, I would get so angry scrolling through Instagram when I had it. I was just like seeing just nonsense, or like seeing these people like build themselves up as something that they aren't, and doing these or claiming to do these things that they aren't doing. And so a lot of it just felt like fraudulent. And everybody, like, I feel like everybody will make it seem like, you have to do these things to be busy and to be successful. And, you know, I, I'm sure there's definitely good arguments to be had for like having social media and like, branding and marketing yourself. And I'm sure that like at some point in my life, it might be a detriment to me, but like I said, I have a full book right now. And I just think that if you do really well with the people in front of you, that's our best marketing, like with myself and at Resilient, where it's just like word of mouth, like do a good job with people, and that just sort of disseminates out. Yeah, so in terms of like social media, I got rid of like Facebook and Instagram. Just I have enough friends in the field who are like really smart, and so I can I lean on you guys, I lean on the Resilient guys, I lean on all the people that I mentioned in the past, like Eric Schmidt, Pat Davidson, Bill Harmon, all those guys. So I don't feel like I really need to be on social media. And if there is something I'm missing, I feel like my friends, you guys, and others in the industry will fill in the gaps, and I'll find out about it somehow without spending like countless amount of hours driving myself mad on on social media.
So because you've mentioned him a couple times, I want to actually hear how you're using some of his methods right now. So you mentioned name Bill Hartman a couple times. We've all met Bill. Bill better, obviously a lot better than we do. Super nice guy, very influential on the field. His like the last couple of years, he's got a lot of like yes men followers on the internet that are saying stuff that honestly we have no idea what they're talking about half the time, and they seem to be making things like incredibly complex instead of simplifying. And so I know that you were that you went to the intensive. I know you at least know a lot of that model. How do you go about taking stuff from that model, and what do you currently use a lot of, and what do you value within it?
Yeah, so when I took the intensive, it coincided with a time when I was probably working with the fewest amount of people, because I was like in PT school. So I was not doing a ton of coaching, and I wasn't really treating people. So it was tough to take his model and apply it. So I really don't use much of it in the current moment. I would be interested to go back and take his course again now that I'm working with people. So I mean, I know that like, to answer your questions, like I don't really use a ton of it. Some of his concepts that I'm not even going to try to really explain it, because I'll just butcher it and like confuse people even more. But like there's like, so I would say like select things once in a while will like light up when I'm like working with people, but I would say very little of it at the current moment that I'm using, but interested to use more. But the biggest thing that Bill has had on me was just like impact on me is like a quest for knowledge and like how to think. He really, like, when I was spending time with him in Indiana years ago, he really like just kind of taught me how to think. And I would remember like going up to him being like, well, ask him a question like, why do you not care if somebody has a good score on an FMS? And he's like, why do you care if somebody has a good score on an FMS? And I was like, I don't know how to answer that, right? So just like little similar, like simple moments like that made me really realize that like I don't question a lot of the things that I hear, learn, or do. So he just taught me to question a lot. But yeah, so that was a little bit of a side note. But going back to his model, I'm not using a ton of it. And I mean, honestly, like the model I do use, or the lens I do see things in, is very simple. It's like, again, it's like low hanging fruit. So if like somebody comes in, I assess them, it's like, what are the things that they don't possess or don't do well, and let me just work on those, and more often than not they get better.
Well, I guess the thing that is maybe frustrating is the wrong word. Frustrating is an overstatement, because it's not like I'm ever losing sleep over stuff like this. But from the outside, so like I was signed up to take an intensive 2+ years ago. COVID canceled it. I just haven't had a chance to, like, none of the dates have worked have like lined up. I would love to go take it just from a curiosity standpoint. If there's something out there that people are using that is bringing success to the people, I want to at least know something of it. So the frustrating, in quotes, thing about it is that all of these models, you referenced Greg Cook earlier, they all have a lot of overlap, but the first or early adopters of a model think that it's like has no overlap to anything else.
Yeah.
Like we probably all use elements of all of these models. We just call them different things.
Yeah. Well, like, also at the end of the day, like, who gives a shit what you use? You know, like sorry to swear in a family podcast, but it's like, you know,
we encourage swearing. We don't encourage enough.
I really don't care like how I get somebody's hip extension. If I get their hip extension and their back feels better, I don't care like what acronyms or letters are used or who subscribes to the system. Like I think like humans are like very tribal, and like I think in our industry, like the weird sort of, you know, tribal groups of this camp and that camp are just manifestations of like human behavior. But it's like really bizarre to me, where you'll see people that I know don't understand. I know they don't understand like the certain model or lens that they're saying they use, and they still use it anyways. And it's like they're afraid to say, I don't want to use this, or I'm going to use something else. And it's like, because they just want to like put themselves in a camp. I feel like people are like afraid of being like exiled if they're like, yeah, I do leg lowering, or I do like a you know, a toe touch progression, right? Because like somebody in one of their friends might turn around and be like, oh my God, dude, like that was years ago, and we don't do that because of how I think, you know, this biological process works or something. It's like, well, it worked, they got better, so like who cares, you know? So I that's like the camps on social media were very frustrating, and like fighting, where it's like you said, there's so much overlap, and it's like, dude, like we're not reinventing the wheel here. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to improve people's range of motion. People were doing it by like static stretching. People do it like with wacky stuff. It's like, you know, and not to like, you know, delve into like nihilism where nothing matters, but it's like just the like in group fighting and like the pettiness is just really silly.
The one that always gets me is when people need a referral somewhere. Like, okay, so if you were referring a family member to someone, why would you care what method or school of thought they use? Why wouldn't you just say, hey, I want to find a good referral?
Yeah, I agree.
Unless you think that there's only one school of thought that can provide good care. But like if I'm sending someone to someone that's in New York, for example, I'm not going to say I need an FRC practitioner in New York to help with this person. No, I want someone who's good at what they do.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And we get referrals from other practitioners, you know, throughout the country that subscribe to certain things. and the patient comes to us with like very specific expectations, and it's very hard sometimes because you're battling basically against like indoctrination. I know that sounds extreme, but like this person's coming to you and they have this way too much stuff in their head, and they have these set of assumptions on basically how they should be treated and how you should treat them. And it could be weird sessions. And so sometimes I try to give people like enough to turn around and appease them, or try to like decorate things in some of the language that I know they might be familiar with, but ultimately will just do what I think is the best thing for them. But it's a little bit of like a smoke and mirror show sometimes. But it's really strange when you have people that do that.
So, Cody, we're about halfway through this. All right, maybe a third of the way through, depending on how far we get into it. I'm going to introduce you to one of my favorite segments of the show that's going to be right up your alley. All right. So, unrelated to training, however related to you, this is what made me think of this topic. All right. So, can you tell us the story of you meeting Joakim Noah in Brazil?
So earlier this summer, I was in Brazil with my girlfriend, and we were like down there visiting some of her family. She's from Brazil and has family down there. And the tail end of the trip, we were in Rio, and it was actually on my birthday. We went to this like samba in the streets like thing. There was just like samba music and drink vendors and food vendors. And JC goes, "Holy shit!" And I was like, "What?" She's like, "The tallest human being I've ever seen in my life is coming up behind you. Like you'll see him in a second." So I turned around and it was Joakim Noah, and I'd had a couple beers, and so I just went over. I was like, "Joakim, what's up, man? Like, nice to meet you. Like, big fan." And he was really cool. He said, "What's up?" And I told him that I live in New York, and actually he came in to drive one time for physical therapy when I was there, and I was like, probably talking to him way more than he cared to hear. But it was just like, "Oh, I remember you came to this gym I worked at in the day," and he was like, "Oh yeah, I remember that place." We actually ended up hanging out with him for like an hour. It was really cool, but it was funny because like Brazil is like such a it's a soccer country, and so nobody really knew him. But the minute I went up to him and like JC asked if I could take a picture with him, people started just shouting NBA teams at him. They were like, "Lakers, Knicks, Magic," and he was like, no. So a couple people knew him, but he was largely just like a 7-foot guy that was kind of inconspicuous there, which was funny. But he was really, really cool.
All right, so that's a really good segue right into this topic. Okay, so I'm gonna have you and Eric guess the top 5 all-time NBA players. Okay, in terms of their ranking of guys who played on the Knicks but sucked on the Knicks.
Wow.
Okay? They played on the Knicks all of them within the last 20 years, but they were all bad with the Knicks. Okay, so Joakim Noah.
They were bad with the Knicks.
They were really bad with the Knicks, but they did spend a little time with the Knicks. All of them towards the end of their careers.
Wow.
I have Noah at number 7. Just a heads up. I ranked 10. I'm gonna try to get you guys to guess the top 5.
Okay, and what is the ranking based off anything like empirical, or just like it's just a Johnny OJ chart?
This is my rankings. However, I think you'll be in pretty much agreeing, or you guys will agree on the top 3. I think once you hear them.
Okay.
You got to start off, Cody. I got to think about this.
Yeah, whenever I get like pressed with like questions like this, it could even be like, "What's your favorite movies?" I'm like, I go blank. Let's see. Really bad. I mean, they're notorious for signing players at the end of their career for a lot of money that don't produce.
Yeah, Noah was like a classic Knicks signing.
Yeah. How about Eddie Curry? Is Eddie Curry up there?
No, because they brought over Eddie Curry during his prime, and he's like wasn't actually that great in his prime, like with the Bulls. So he's not as good as my number 10 on this list.
Okay.
What about like Zach Randolph?
No, Zach Randolph had really good years with the Knicks. If you look at the numbers,
okay.
You guys are in the right era.
He played for a long time after he was with the Knicks too, right?
Yeah.
God, let's see.
I'll give you number 1 is a shooting guard. Number 2 is a point guard. Number 5 is a point guard. Okay, these guys were all like number 3 had really good Nike commercials back in the day. He was
Penny Hardaway.
Yeah, Penny Hardaway's number 3.
Penny Hardaway. I feel like after you tell me the 5, I'm gonna be like, damn it, why didn't I think of that?
Who did they just sign this year that was really bad?
Number 5 was known for his dunks, and he was a point guard.
Known for his dunks.
Steve Francis.
Steve Francis.
Steve Francis.
Yep. Number 4.
Franchise.
Yep, the franchise.
Yeah, he was really bad on the Knicks.
Really bad.
I mean, I think Derrick Rose was headed there, but not anymore.
No, Derrick Rose would have been on that list had he not come back to the Knicks the second time.
Yeah, he would have been on that list.
Wow, this is stint number 2 for Dick.
You said number 1's a point guard?
Number 1's a shooting guard. He's actually one of the best scorers of the last 25 years. And he played part of one season with the Knicks, and he was bad.
Part of one season with the Knicks. Jeez.
I want to put a shot clock on some of these. Number 4, I don't think you guys are going to get. It's Antonio McDyess.
McDyess. That's a name I haven't thought of. I used to have a signed Antonio McDyess ball in my somebody got it for me. Not a big Antonio McDyess guy, but nice gift from somebody. Right.
Numbers 1 and 2 are left. So we got Steve Francis, number 5, Antonio McDyess, number 4, Penny Hardaway, number 3, this former Charlotte Hornets point guard, number 2. And
Kemba Walker.
Who?
Kemba Walker?
No, Kemba Walker is a great selection here that I think I made this list before the last year or two, and Kemba Walker would probably crack top 5.
I was saying he's top 10 for sure.
Kemba Walker actually probably would slot in ahead of Steve Francis. I think he's a better historical player than Steve Francis, but this list I think I created about a year ago. So it's prior to Kemba Walker being complete bust at the Knicks.
Wait a minute, you created this list a year ago?
Oh, I keep running lists on my phone and stuff like this.
You think that Kemba Walker is better historically than Steve Francis?
Yes.
Really?
Without looking at numbers, I'll stand by that.
Hey, John, I defer to Johnny in all things sports.
Because I think minus the highlight dunks, I don't think Steve Francis. I think he was like a borderline all-star. He probably made a couple all-star games, but he was a sub 20 point a game guy. He couldn't shoot from the outside. Kemba Walker is a better historical player.
Really?
I think so. All right.
I'm looking up. All right, you got to give us the list.
Number two is Baron Davis.
Baron Davis. Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah, I feel like he gained a lot of weight with the Knicks.
Number one. I'm going to give you guys a couple more clues. He's a cousin of Vince Carter.
Tracy McGrady.
Tracy McGrady, number 1.
I forgot he played for the Knicks.
Yeah, he was really bad with the Knicks. It was towards the end of his career.
Yeah, I had Tracy McGrady's shoe in 8th grade. Those things were awesome.
Adidas.
It was an Adidas shoe. It was the only basketball shoe I ever bought. My parents ever got me. I was like, I really want these shoes. They're like, I don't know, and they got them for me. They were awesome.
I had the T-Mac All-Star Edition one. So one shoe was patent red leather and the other was patent blue leather, and I looked so insane. I don't know why my parents bought those for me.
T-Mac had a great career. He just never did it in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you're not wrong to say he's one of the best scorers of all time, right?
One of the best scorers the last 25 years. Probably career comparable to James Harden. Harden probably a little better, but never did it in the playoffs, but put up either led the league in scoring and came close to it several times.
He had that one, and I'm sure you'll probably nail the exact time and the exact amount of points scored, Johnny. But there was one playoff game or something where he scored 13 points in 30 seconds.
It was 13 and 35 against the Spurs. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wild.
Yeah,
that's the precision I love.
Why did the Raptors get rid of him, you think?
Why did who?
Why did the Raptors get rid of him?
For some reason, I've read or listened to something about this within the last year or two. This isn't a 20-year-old memory.
This guy's a machine.
The Raptors opted to. He was a restricted free agent, and I believe he was a restricted free agent. The Raptors opted to not match the contract because they thought it was too much for him. The Magic wound up signing him. The Magic were trying.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, the Magic were trying to become a real contender. So the Magic signed. The Magic were trying to sign Tim Duncan. They came really close to signing Tim Duncan. They didn't. The Spurs wound up convincing him to come back. Instead, the Magic wound up spending money on T-Mac and then Grant Hill. So they were like, Grant Hill was an All NBA guy at that point. He just was never the same once he went to the Magic. Started getting hurt all the time. Yeah. But like, if you look at T-Mac's numbers at the Raptors, he was not the T-Mac that we're remembering. Not yet. He was young. But if the Raptors had him, the Raptors probably make a finals in 2001.
They got him, right?
What's up?
They got to make the finals.
Well, they
got T-Mac and Vince Carter.
They took the Sixers to a 7-game series. The Sixers wound up making the finals. So I think they'd probably make the finals. They have T-Mac and Vince Carter. But
yeah, I think you're right. Old school Raptors jersey is one of the coolest jerseys in the NBA too.
The one with the dinosaur on it?
Yeah. That's an elite level jersey right there.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
You had some weird jerseys in the 90s NBA. Really strange jerseys.
Yeah. Memphis Grizzlies was a really cool. Oh, no, Vancouver Grizzlies.
Vancouver, yeah.
Pistons had a crazy jersey.
Yeah, it was like
the
teal.
Turquoise with the horse on it.
That teal color is ugly.
So, while we're off topic, Cody, can you, this is a big, important story for me. And it's really holy legend at this point. Can you talk about trying to get John O'Neill to eat soup? Like, what's the buildup? What was the day like? You go through the whole process, I want everything. I want all the details of you trying to get John to eat soup.
Yeah, I'm gonna like Quentin Tarantino and start by saying like it was a failed operation. So now like I'll tell you the story where John and I, when we worked at Drive, we would go to Gourmet Garage pretty often. Nice stroll, a couple blocks away, get some fresh air, shoot the shit a little bit, and so he started telling me that he, to sum it up, I guess just doesn't really like food in general. And then so I was trying to dig deeper into this and told me he had never tried soup. And I was like, you've never tried any soup? He must have been 26, 25 at the time. It's like, it's crazy that you're this old and you haven't tried soup. This stuff is actually pretty good. And so he was like, I was like, I'll treat you to a cup of soup tomorrow at Gourmet Garage. And, the day before, he's not staring fear right in the face. He seemed open-minded to it. And he was like, all right, tomorrow I'll try some soup. And so then we're at Drive. I was hanging out at the front desk and he was like pacing around, like looked like something was really bothering him. And then he just kind of rifles at me. He's like, I don't want to try soup today, man. Like, I don't think it's for me. I don't think the texture is cool. I don't want to try the soup. And I was like, that's fine, dude. We don't have to try the soup. No soup. So have you tried soup yet?
No, I'm out on it.
Okay. That's never going to happen.
But
I think that you should try broth though, like a chicken stock or something like that. I think you should try it.
So I cook rice and chicken broth with chicken stock, but it's solid when it comes out.
Yeah. So basically soup, huh?
Yeah, it's basically soup.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm proud of you though. You have tried a lot of foods over the years. You really, grown a lot. So that's awesome.
Hey, my palate has rapidly expanded in the last probably 3 to 5 years. I like sushi now. That's new as of about 4 years ago.
Nuts.
The amount of vegetables I'm eating these days is at an all-time high.
Yeah. Don't tell me you like pizza now, because what that is not pizza. But
I do like a good custom flatbread that is basically meat on top of bread.
I actually think at this point, Doug is a pickier eater than you.
I think Doug. I actually don't even think it's close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Doug's a much pickier eater than me.
Which is horrifying.
I don't know. I think the vegetable. What if you ask random people what's weirder, not to eat vegetables or never to have tried soup? That the people are going to go with soup.
I think you're right, man.
Maybe. Yeah.
But that said, like that guy doesn't eat any vegetables. So
I think
bizarre.
day in and day out, what I typically eat is more normal what Doug typically eats.
Do you have much variety to your diet day to day? Because I can tell you he doesn't.
No, not a ton. I will say it's variety within a couple choices. So yeah, it's either chicken or beef, eggs for breakfast. Not a whole lot else. Potatoes, rice. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, good solid stuff. I mean, that's like I'm not a picky eater, but that's basically like my day to day too.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say most people, if you're into your health, that's probably what you're eating, right?
Yeah. Probably. Cody, to get back on track here, I want to ask you a more clinical or theoretical within the field question. So, do you guys have students right now?
We don't have one currently. We had two earlier. We had like one in the beginning of the summer and one in like the winter.
Okay, so you guys have had them. I knew you had them.
Yeah.
I knew you were a student of Greg and Trevor at one point, back when you overlapped with Eric. But when you guys get a student, what's like the maybe it is like a set curriculum, maybe it's not, but what is like the hierarchy of things that you want them to learn during their time with you?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest thing, honestly, and this is like very specific to physical therapy, just because like the number one thing that I find students to be like really poorly trained on getting out of school. Like the thing that PT school like fails all physical therapy students is like how to load people and how to actually like train or work people. Like 3 years of PT school, we didn't cover a push-up, a split squat. Like we didn't do anything. Like treatment and exercise was like an afterthought. It was just like, oh, you do it. It was taken for granted as that, like, it was like so primal or so instinctual. We don't have to cover it. We just spend times with like pathophys and like just minutia. So literally I'm not exaggerating here. I don't know. I graduated with 32 people. I'm out, remove myself, 31 people. I'm not sure if there's a single person in my class that I would feel comfortable loading anybody. So the biggest thing is like just getting PT students comfortable with like coaching and what like good movement looks like. And also too, like just not being afraid to actually load people. The other thing I think people, most students are afraid to do is actually like load people because they think everybody's so fragile coming to them. So I would say like the biggest thing is we have like our Resilient like movement foundation course, which all of our students get, and they're supposed to watch that beforehand. But that's basically, that covers like all the basic sort of like movement patterns. And so that's the thing I want people to be the most, comfortable doing. And that's like, cause that makes up most of our treatment is like, we want people doing things. We want people moving. I want to give people like a treatment plan that they can execute themselves so they don't have to like rely on me. So getting kids comfortable with like what a good split squat looks like and how to progress and regress these things. That's where I think like as an industry, physical therapy does a poor job. And that's what I want our students to really get comfortable doing. So honestly, it's like a crash course on how to be a good personal trainer.
That's great. So a little bit of current events, Cody. I'm a huge Nebraska football fan. They just lost. They paid Georgia Southern $1.5 million to come play them, and they lost the game. Right. Scott Frost, the head coach, he's a Husker legend. He got fired after 3 games. After this big offseason where they're gonna change everything around, and this is the year, right? So earlier in the summer, there was an article that Scott Frost is at the podium, and he was kind of championing how hard the offensive line was working, and that 10 to 15 times in a practice, an offensive lineman was vomiting during the practice. And as a fan, but also as somebody who has spent over a decade in the performance field, I knew that they were going to suck, right? it was right. The writing was on the wall that the Huskers were going to have a tough year this year. So my question is, for you and John, how do we close the gap? And this, I don't know if we have enough time. We have probably about 15 minutes, but the huge question is, how do we close the gap between these any level coaches and to have them understand the requirements of sport? Like what? Because we're light years away, and it doesn't seem like we're making any progress. Like, what are the next steps?
Yeah, it's really idiotic. I don't. I really like. And I don't know how you do it, but like, it's almost like a division of labor issue where it's like, just don't do conditioning. Just let the strength coaches handle things that are performance based, and just do skill. Right. I think. I mean, I really don't know. And the coaches are the ones that run the show, right? So it's not like a strength coach can come up to him and be like, "Hey, why don't you just let me do that?" Now, I'm sure that like if people have certain staffs have good relationships and that could be had, but to me, it just feels like trying to do something that's not your job. Like it would be like if I had a football player come as a patient and I was like trying to teach them football skill work. Like that's not my role. That's not where my skills are best utilized. And also too, it just seems really stupid. Like just watch the game, like
yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying that this is like an ideal training plan, but like if you would just hand it like a breakdown of like a time motion analysis to like a football coach, and you're like, just have this just like if you're gonna do conditioning, just mimic these things, right? And you only did those things, that'd probably be pretty good. It'd be much better than like what they were doing at Nebraska, having guys, 10 to 15 guys throw up. But I mean, you just almost feel like telling the coach, be like, it's just like, it's so ironic because they're supposed to be like the experts in the game. And then meanwhile, they're having them do these things that are completely at odds with the demands of the game. So I don't know what it is. So I don't know how to make it better either. Johnny, you got any input?
Yeah, Eric, I mean, it's a huge question, huge topic. I knew Cody's response would have some humor involved to it, which it did. But maybe that's a topic we talk about next week. Just you and I just go back and forth on for, 30, 40 minutes, try to cover how we currently approach it, the pluses and minuses to it. My current avenue, to be honest, is tying back to stuff we were talking about before, but I have like negative interest in like educating, like each other outside of educating people of our experience level in the field. I would much rather talk to coaches and athletes and like brand new coaches in the field, like our interns, because I actually think it's more impactful. Like we're going to argue about like, should you hold an isometric for 30 or 40 seconds for this type of to make sure the collagen in the tendon does this versus this? Like, who cares?
Yeah,
no, you're right.
Yeah, we fight. Yeah, it's this infighting about like stuff that just like
it just doesn't matter. Like, I still can go to any high school baseball game in the area in Massachusetts and watch the warm-ups and be like, oh my God, we're still doing this. Right.
Yeah.
So what does it matter? Like we're not speaking to the right community. So that's a much bigger topic, bigger concept. It's one of the reasons why I got back into coaching on field. I am the defending Division 1A 11U youth baseball coach around here, champion, just so we're aware.
Did you win the coach of the year?
I should have. Unclear, never got the votes back, but our team rolled to a 37-7 record in the state championship. So, and we're planning on trying to repeat this year. Anyway,
I think you're absolutely right, though. I think we're just talking to the wrong people.
We're talking to the wrong people.
Yeah. And I mean, like on a side note, James Smith has his book like Governing Dynamics of Coaching. It feels like, I don't know, being on like an acid trip reading it at times, but like it's actually really intelligent in terms of like how to structure a like sporting practice with the constraints of like how energy systems work and the demands of sport. And this is like this is a utopian like thing, but it's like if every coach read that, that'd probably be helpful. But it's like you said, like if we took things like that and we're able to teach coaches, like here's like the energy system demands of your sport and like how you could do drills with these constraints and be able to educate them on that. I mean, that would be the thing that would be way more impactful than trying to decide if we should go plus or minus 5 seconds on a hold, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's stuff like that. I mean, there's so many. I mean, the baseball world. I'm sure it's the same in everything. But there's so much stuff in the baseball world that this population I work the most with that we're just talking to the wrong people.
Mhm.
And like most of the speaking type engagements or like events that I've attended in the last probably 4 or 5 years now have been like I want to get in front of baseball coaches. It's going to be more impactful than getting in front of S&C people. Like S&C people, like we all are going to cross paths with the same stuff. Like what I'm doing isn't that secret. Like I'll tell you exactly what I do. But it is kind of secret if we're talking to baseball coaches because they're not exposed to it.
Yeah. 100%.
Cody, I got another shop talk question for you. You spent more time around Derek Hansen than either of us. I think it Drive for probably a couple months. I don't know the exact time, but we've seen him in courses, followed his stuff for years now. What were a couple takeaways that you had that either surprised you or like gave you a lot more insight into how he operates by spending that much time around him?
Yeah, he's the thing that like really struck me and impressed me, and I actually try to model myself after him quite a bit is he's so simple, like he just he doesn't want to complicate things. And I think that like people like to have these very like theoretical discussions, which are like fun, and I enjoy them too, but like he'll be like, I don't know, like I just know that like if you run fast you'll get faster, right? And so but I've seen him work with like countless people now, and it always comes back to the basics. And I think that that takes a tremendous amount of like confidence in yourself, uh because like everybody go like, it's like, all right, start back to the A drills. So let's start with A march, A skip, A run. And I think sometimes myself included, where I'll get a patient that I've worked with that comes in and they do well and they go away for a while and then they come back. And yeah, I think sometimes you have this like extra, and it's self-imposed, but like I feel like I owe them something new or something different. And he's just like, I'm just going to give you what works. I'm not trying to sell you on anything sexy. You want to be better at this one thing, and I'm going to give you the tools that make you better at this one thing. And so he doesn't get caught up in these like debates on like, for example, like one day he was working with somebody and he was like, hey, lift your hand more. And then somebody said to him, like, do you ever worry about internal, external cues? And he was like, no. And so the guy did it. He ran again and it looked much better. He's like, it worked. I don't give a shit if it's external, internal, like he's like, it worked. He's like, if it didn't work, then maybe try something else. But he's like, why complicate it? And so much of asking him questions and stuff came back to that very same answer. It's like, why complicate things? And so he's there's like an old saying. It's like, I don't fear the guy who could throw like 10,000 punches. I throw the guy who's throwing one punch like 10,000 times or something. Like that's Derek. He's like a master at what he knows and doesn't try to be anything that he's not. And he's incredibly successful because of that. So, I think it's like really admirable. And I think more people in our industry could probably, learn a lot from watching him.
What's next for you, Con Ed wise? Like, what do you want to learn more about in the next, I don't know, let's say 6 to 12 months?
Con Ed wise, let's see. I'd like to learn more about like throwing and working with like overhead athletes and stuff. I feel like I've in the last like couple of years, just from like working with Trevor a lot, and also just from the patients that have come across my plate, I've done a lot of like ACL, which, like field sports. So I've really dove into like plyos and change of direction stuff, and really feel like I have a really good grasp on that. But when I got to work with Greg, when I was his student at Resilient, he's really great at like return to throwing and how to just rehab and manage throwers. And that's something I definitely want to get better at. And, I didn't grow up playing baseball. So like, I'm not a baseball guy like you, or if you consider yourself a baseball guy. But I would like to get better at that, and like how to, manage that rehab process myself. Because as of now, I haven't managed a return to throw rehab. So that's something I would like to get into, and something I'll definitely, be leaning on you guys, because you guys have both worked with a ton of baseball players.
Yeah, there is a video on the internet circling around of me beating your ass in a run and gun. Should we tell everybody about that?
So now you're really getting the driving reason why I want to get better at throwing is because I can't sleep at night knowing that Eric Manis can do something better than me. So I don't all that virtuous talk about trying to help athletes is nonsense. I want to kick Manis's ass in a running gun.
You want to learn proper throwing mechanics, so you don't throw like a European soccer player with the wrong hand.
So I want to get better at that, and so I can rehab my own UCL tear when I kick Manis's ass. What are things that you guys like are looking to get into though? Because like I said, I lean on you guys a lot for like things that are interesting.
Yeah, honestly, a lot of mine are on the more business end right now. Just stuff that I feel like not that I'm tapped out. You always have more stuff to learn about training wise, but just stuff on the business end I'd like to be a little more knowledgeable in. Just understanding, marketing, retention, all stuff like that is probably the primary thing. Secondary, and this one is somewhat selfish, but I'm reading a lot on nutrition right now. It's something I feel like I could do a better job of. Well, obviously myself, but to like educating clients on habit formation and all. Like I mentioned this last podcast we did, but I did some stuff with precision nutrition earlier this calendar year. Right now I'm reading, just got a couple books by a guy named Dr. James D. Nickel Antolino, something like that. So I'm about a third of the way through one of his books. So reading a bunch on that. But it's for me, it's very much outside of the typical like sets, reps, S&C stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
But the actual in-house thing that I'd like to have a little more in-house in terms of like stuff I actually do every day is putting a little more data behind like med wall throw velocities, and just right now we're testing all our high school kids on it, different weights, and just trying to consistently do that throughout the off season. So we did that with sprint times 2 off seasons ago, and I feel like it went really well because now I have enough data where if we get like a 16-year-old baseball player, I can say, all right, you're slow, you're fast, you're somewhere in the middle, versus like there's a random time. And so I'm trying to do the same with med ball throws right now. But
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, Eric.
And I'm just looking to like systematize all my stuff. Like I think like what you said earlier about like getting good at the basics, and like I think that they're really like within each like movement category of like change of direction and linear speed, like there's probably like 5 to 10 things that people need to be good at to be like actually good athletes, right? So I'm thinking about what are those 10 things for each thing, and how to rank them. And I've really just like want to master all Lee Taft stuff, because I feel like he just has it, like I feel like so stupid that I feel like if his name is like Lee Titovsky or Titovskov and he was Russian when I was like a kid, I would have like been like really into it. But he was just like a regular nice American guy who like was doing shit that works, right? Like we spent all this time like trying to read Super Training. I still haven't fucking read it. and it hasn't helped me, right? Like, so I'm just like looking to really look at things that like actually work, and so we can actually like help people, right?
I remember I used to bring super training when I worked at Drive. My first year there, it was like, all right, I bought it. I'm supposed to read this, in order to be like a real strength coach, right? And I remember I used to bring it to Washington Square Park, which is about a 10-minute walk from where Drive is. And I used to sit there in the park and read super training like straight, and a complete maniac, like an incredible waste of time.
Oh man.
I probably should have just been reading like interesting life stuff that made me better able to talk to adults, because that was
right.
more important at that job than understanding stuff in super training.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like that. I know for me, like that was very much so like an ego thing growing up, where it's like, oh, like everybody says this book is like, I if I want to be like these guys, I got to do this thing, right? And I remember like reading books that I'm like, I'm not getting anything out of this, but I would finish and power along just because I wanted to be able to say, oh, I read that book, right? But I feel like, honestly, I feel like way stupider now than I was like years ago. Like I feel like I know way less, like in terms of like things I can rattle off and theoretical stuff, but I'm like much more helpful and better at working with people. Like, so I remember I was like telling Trevor the story. I remember after a seminar at Rand Phones, I don't remember which one, but like being at a bar and like talking about like educating Todd Bumgardner and Mike Ranfone on like the prefrontal cortex as somebody who was like in college at Springfield, not working with anybody. And they're probably like, who is this dipshit? And why is he rattling on about this stuff? Like, and so
they're probably
knew,
just like smirking, waiting for you to just come to a crash, like be like, this guy's gonna meet his day, right?
They probably wanted to kick my ass, like
yeah.
I would have, looking back at it now, but so I don't know, but I think you guys nailed the same things. Like at this point, I'm looking for like things that are practical and I can use. If I want like something philosophical and deep, I'll go like read a fiction novel or some philosophy book or something. So, but that's it.
I want to put this on the books right now. Speaking of, because I want to see you guys present again. You guys in Resilient, you add yourself in there. We get Eric involved. We get me involved. Maybe we get Jordan, who's our pitching guy, involved, who we had on as previous guest. It would be awesome to break down like pitching specific stuff. But we do a 2-day course. Well, it's like Resilient Movement Foundations 2.0. Okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's us 3 plus the original 3 plus a pitching guy, maybe plus one more. So it's like 7 or 8 speakers over a 2-day stretch. I mean, even if we get nobody to show up, we'll all be happy that we did that.
We charge $10,000. We get one person. We all make $1,000.
Slam dunk. Slam dunk. That would be fun, even from the standpoint, like you said, if nobody showed up, it would just there's few people that I'd like to listen to more than you guys. So from a selfish standpoint, it would be really cool for me.
Yeah. I think we put it together for sometime in 2023.
I like it. We can we'll do it like either we'll do it right after your bachelor party, so it'll be nice and fresh.
We could do it as part of it. Make it like a 7-day bachelor party, couple days of straight Con Ed, and a couple days of bachelor party.
I'll definitely be able to make that. I definitely can commit time to that.
I think we shoot for like a February or March.
Yeah, I'm into it, man. I think that'd be a ton of fun. Where do we do it? We do it in Massachusetts?
Maybe we could do it up here. We could do it down by you guys. Whatever works. We could do it at Resilient HQ. That way we don't pay any overhead anywhere.
That's a good idea.
Oh my God. And then we get the one, there's gotta be some schmuck in New York City willing to pay the $10,000, right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
This is the seminar.
Seminars, yeah, we got to come up with a cool name like Ranfone used to do.
Yeah.
Like the Awakening or something.
Performance Mesh's first annual seminar or something like that. Summit.
The Performance Mesh Summit.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, let's do it. Let's do it. Even if we only get each other to show up, it'll be worth it.
Performance Mesh Summit, PMS.
Are you PMSing this weekend?
I think we do it in some off the beaten path location and make people like drive out somewhere to attend it. Not in New York. Seminars in New York City are a nightmare.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I want there to be some hardship involved. Like you got to like really prove that you want to be there. You got to like, we'll do it like in the Poconos in a cabin or something.
Yeah, exactly.
With no directions. You have to find it.
Yeah, you get a house. You rent a house that sleeps like 16, and these people like pay and they stay at the house too.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, hey, let's do it. All right, guys, this is a good episode. We will. Eric and I will be back soon. We're gonna bring Cody on again sometime before we, maybe every 10 is Cody. So episode 10, 20, 30.
I would love that.
I would love that too.
Create some too. We got a lot of topics we didn't cover with him.
Yeah, I could keep going, but House of Dragons is on. So,
Yeah.
Johnny and I, that's a big night for us.
Yep. All right, Cody, thank you for coming on. Eric, we'll be back in a few days.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate it.